very nice to meet all of you. I'm Allison Bell, statewide lead instructor for Foundations, and it really is an honor to me to be included in this presentation. Coming from the general education side, I greatly appreciate the fact that the industrial technology teachers teach us how to teach technology students, because it really is a whole different ballgame. In a general education environment, I teach the success skills courses, and what we're looking to do there is to have that mind shift. Understand that it is absolutely necessary to understand and learn reading, writing, and math. You can't get by without it. But how do we encourage the student to buy into that? And just as Glenn said, we have to prove to them, and we have to explain why it's necessary. Kinesthetic and visual contextualized lessons are what make these things work. We try to get them up and out of their seats. We're not going to get their attention by standing up and lecturing. We know that. So we try to engage them in very lively discussions. We talk about teamwork, communication skills. We paint scenarios about how do you get along in a workplace if one of your team members has a different personality type. What do you do if the person working next to you makes a mistake and won't talk about it? What if it's the boss's relative? All of these kinds of brainstorming techniques, problem-solving skills, we really try to emphasize to them how to be a good employee as well as how to do their technical skills jobs well. And we just have to make sure that we develop those personal relationships. If we don't let the student know that we care about them and care about their success, they won't trust our teaching. So many times I think we get students who come in with the background of, well, teachers don't like me. I'm not good at school. I can't write. To me, if you can say, you can talk. If you can talk, you can write. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you have to be able to communicate well with the shift worker who's on a different time so that you can communicate to them if there's a problem with a machine or somebody's sick that day. How do you troubleshoot? How do you maneuver around those situations? We are very careful about advising properly, and we often have to incorporate the advising staff at the college. But our industrial tech advisors are the ones who make all of the critical decisions and about the courses of study that need to be done. Okay, so one of the things that we focus on in the student success courses is what are their goals? What is the orientation that they have for success? What do they do to define that success? If you can tap into that and make sure that they understand this reading, writing, and math you're doing is going to make you money, whether it's money that's motivating them or a successful career as a manager, as long as you tap into that, they can buy into it. We want to help build their confidence. I had one student who came in, it was as if he were the Tasmanian devil on the Bugs Bunny cartoon. He wouldn't sit still. I understand that. I'm a former reporter, so I'm a kinesthetic visual person too. But once he was able to see that sitting down at that computer was critical, the computer skills were necessary, the writing skills were necessary, he ended up being the first president of our student chapter of the American Welding Society, which Bob will talk about here in just a minute. Applying job search techniques, it is a whole new ballgame, as you know, in this world. I appreciated the encouragement Monica gave us that we can tell our students, hey, you know, you're really needed out there. And I think they do know that, but trying to make sure that they write that cover letter correctly, get that resume done in the proper way is going to be critical to their success as well. In the extreme cases where we have certain students who are a little reluctant to participate in some of the computer-based skills, we develop project-based learning. Down in Newcastle, we have a dual credit program for machine tool, and we had to do a Hail Mary for some of those students and created a project where we asked them to come up with the dimensions, the materials required to drop a airlifted humanitarian aid crate from an unmanned aircraft. And we used real world research from the University of Alabama to come up with the plane, and Harvard video of a test that was being done. that proved to them it was real. And for the first time, some of those students came to me and said, hey, I want to research this. I buy in, I get it. So we're really trying to be creative. We do have to do a little convincing about the math. I was very glad to hear that Steve was saying, hey, you know, we've done a survey of all of our employers. They need that math. We've had an employer come into our students and tell them, hey, look, you're going to be fired. If you don't measure properly, if you can't get a square corner, you're going to be fired. He had hired someone who had been a 20-year veteran of working in the welding field. They had to fire him because he could not measure properly. And that's tragedy. And in another case, a young man who was a problem solver came in and within 3 months was promoted because he came up with better strategies of doing techniques that were being done in the company. We do talk an awful lot about measurements, blueprint design, fractions and decimals, and we try to relate it to what is going on in the industrial technology classroom. If they're doing a blueprint and trying to scale it up for the model, that obviously relates to the ratio and proportions. Fractions and decimals we cover all the time, and we try to visualize it as much as possible. Math mistakes, we've talked about it. If you make them, you're fired. And I think the bottom line is that the confidence level that comes from these students, once they see that they have the capabilities, and nobody's telling them, hey, you can't do this, you're not good enough, the transformations are just amazing. And we have such a high job placement rate that ultimately convinces them that going to school and actually getting that degree does make a difference. So I have to offer all my credit to our industrial technology teachers, and I will introduce them and let them tell you about their part of this important project. First of all, Bob Richwine, who is our Executive Director of the Anderson Welding Institute.